Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Fish Friday number 164 and we have a good one for you today. Today's fish is a fish that I've honestly never heard of prior to me finding it. It was really fun doing some research. Interesting fact might have been a little pushed, but it still surprised me, at least when I was doing this, when I was doing the research on this fish. But let's get into this fish. Today's fish that we're going to be talking about is, the Tassel filefish, or the leafy filefish, or the leatherjacket filefish, or the prickly leatherjacket. I do believe it is predominantly known as the prickly leatherjacket, but I kind of found it first under Tassel filefish, so let's go with that. Scientific name, Catodermis pensiligerus. Again, that's Catodermis pensiligerus. Kind of difficult for me to say. It is part of the family Monocanthidae, which is the family of filefish. And the filefish are actually very closely related to pufferfish and triggerfish, but they're known as filefish because if you look real closely at this picture, you can see that it has rough bumps over there, like almost like a file. That's how it's got its name. Now, this fish is native to the tropical waters, the Indian Ocean, Red Sea, Persian Gulf. It does go up to the Western Pacific. I saw some things that said it went up to Japan, south to Australia. But I do believe it is very prevalent throughout the Indian Ocean. And I do believe this is another one of those fish that is known about, but not necessarily heavily researched. So there could be some, if I say anything wrong, please correct me. But I'm going with the best that I could find anyway. Now, in terms of where you're going to find this fish, it is native to coral reefs, but it's more specific that it lives amongst the corals and weeds very close to sandy bottoms. So it really likes those coral reefs that have sand real close by, or weeds. And we'll get into why that is kind of apparent when you see this fish in a little bit. In terms of depth, these are shallow. You're going to find these about 2 to 25 meters, which is 6 to 80 feet, which in terms of oceanic fish, that is very shallow. Just like the triggerfish, which we've talked about in the channel a couple of times, the dorsal fins have, they have 2 dorsal fins, and the first usually has this really long spine, really at the eye level. I think it's around here, right here. So you can see this one long spine. It's a very short dorsal fin, but it is. Then they have this softer dorsal fin. It's decorated. Oh, hold on. It is very rhomboidal in shape. Very small pectoral fins. And you can see it does kind of vary in color, but it is predominantly has these black lines going through with blue dots going through. Usually the caudal fin and the anal fin have these speckles thrown in there. But the most apparent thing to it is very obviously these tassels, where it comes from. It's honestly perfectly named. These tassels in here are really prevalent in these fish, and it would make sense if you're finding these among corals and weeds along sandy bottoms. Those tassels really break up the fish's outline and allows it to camouflage very, very well. It does have a very large head as compared to the rest of its body shape, but this rhomboidal, very dorsolaterally compressed, sorry, not dorsal, just laterally compressed body shape, and with this head going in, it is very, very suited for its environment. It's very, very great at camouflaging. Even the clear fins with the speckles really help break up that outline. And then with this close up in this mouth, you can see that this fish can get into really tight cracks, and that's really important. This fish eats a lot of small animals, pretty much anything in it finds. I do believe it primarily does like small crustaceans and stuff, small mollusks, little polyps, eggs, anything that it can really catch, but it's really good at getting into cracks and getting those really fine particle foods that some of the larger reef fish could not really get to. And you can see here, you can see that it does have some dermical spines on it. So, but I do not believe it's like a pufferfish. In fact, I'm fairly confident this fish predominantly uses camouflage to escape from predators, not any sort of real defense mechanisms. That spine probably helps them in some ways, but I do believe that the spine on the tassel filefish is predominantly used, as you can see here, to be a really long sort of tassel appendage to, as I again would like to say that they're just breaking up that outline. Now, one interesting thing about it is I really couldn't find anything on the reproductive strategy of this fish. All I could really find is that the male surveys the eggs and the female sticks them into the bottom in a sheltered location. Now, predominantly with reef fish, when you're talking about something like that, the female will find a small little crevice or cave in the coral, lay her eggs, the male will fertilize, and then the female will leave and the male will sort of guard the eggs until they hatch. I could imagine that this would be the same reproductive strategy, especially when you consider that these are a very diurnal and solitary species. These rarely school, but they do sometimes go into small schools, but they are predominantly solitary, at least from what I could find. But they are diurnal. These are not fish that you're going to find out at night. Now, some of the interesting things is another interesting thing is this fish is actually very common in the aquarium trade. When they are in schools, they'll often end up in trawls and they'll actually be pulled. And I'm sure there are actual individuals pulled out as well instead of being from trawls, but they'll keep these and they have multiple uses for these. Some of them will go to the aquarium trade, and it's very sought after actually among a select few. The people that know this fish really want this fish in their aquariums. It's apparently not the hardest fish to have, but it's definitely not the easiest. But it's very, very unusual looking, relatively friendly. It's not an aggressive fish. However, due to the rarity of this fish in the aquarium trade, I could find this fish for around $170. Really expensive for a fish. So definitely, if you're looking for one of these in your aquarium, I would really hope you know what you're doing so that you do not have any issues with spending that money and potentially losing it. Now, something else that goes along with that, when they are caught in trawls, one other use for it is they're actually considered very good table fare. Locals apparently love to eat the tasseled flying fish. It's very, very common as table fare, and it's supposed to be really, really good. And the locals actually used to use the skin as sandpaper to smooth objects as well, which would make sense. When you have those rough bumps on the skin, it seems like it would be really good sandpaper, and that's exactly what it was used for. A really neat fish with many uses that was very, very important to the local populations. But now, for the interesting fact that we're going to end the video on, or at least the one that surprised me the absolute most, when I looked through pictures, and if you can see here the pictures, and you go on, Google and you search pictures. When I think of coral reef fish that have this sort of uniqueness to them, oh my goodness, this one's, man, I wish I'd found that. But when you find a fish with this sort of uniqueness to it, I always have tended to put my own biases on it and think that this is a small fish. In all actuality, this fish would be considered a medium-sized fish. This fish can grow up to 31 centimeters, which is around a foot long, which to me even makes it, going into the aquarium trade, that much more impressive if you manage to get a good one that grows for an extended period of time and you get that fish. You have to remember 31 centimeters, that's almost a foot long, and you're probably talking about potentially a foot tall, so you're talking about a foot by a foot. That's a fairly impressive fish, especially for an aquarium. And I can just imagine having one of these in your aquarium would be mesmerizing to watch. So when I figured out the size and then really thought about having it in the aquarium trade, that's when it really threw me. And, you know, I was thinking a little small, like clownfish size fish, or a little wrasse, or, you know, all these little like gobies. I was thinking that size. And then to find out that it can potentially get up to a foot, and granted, average moderate size is probably around 20-25 centimeters, which would be 8-9 inches. That's still a relatively sizable fish for a saltwater aquarium, especially for a saltwater reef aquarium. It just really floored me, and it proved to me once again that the biases that you may see on fish when you're looking at them can really play a factor into how you perceive the fish. And you know, because looking at this, if I saw a monster one, which I would, you know, 30 centimeters, I don't know if I would have recognized it in the wild, even after knowing this fish, just because the pictures all tell me it's a small fish. It's small. It's hiding in small leaves and everything, and it's large. And that's why it was actually probably used as table fare, was because it actually had a decent amount of meat on it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that interesting fact, because it was definitely the most interesting fact to me personally. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. If I don't, please be safe. Have a great day. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you do, I'd really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. If you'd like to support the channel, please click the link down below. It is by no means expected, but very much appreciated. Regardless, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and peace.